Hello, and welcome to Insight AI Brief Gaming. Okay, so the former creators of massive games like World of Warcraft and Diablo 3, they've released details on a new PvP online game.
Yeah, it's called Arkheron.
Right, Arkheron. And it's being described as a mix of a battle royale and a full-fledged action RPG, which sounds confusing.
Well, yeah. And it seems the developers know it's confusing. Even the studio head, Rob Pardo, admitted they haven't quite found the right way to describe it.
Huh.
He said, telling people it's an ARPG battle royale hybrid often gives them the wrong impression. Apparently, the actual gameplay loop is pretty unique.
Okay, so that's our mission for this deep dive. Cut through the buzzwords and figure out what Arkheron actually is. We've got this huge pedigree. Rob Pardo, Bonfire Studios, ex-Blizzard vets.
Absolutely. A lot of heavy hitters there.
And this game they've been working on since, 2018. So we need to look at how this genre blend works, how their history at Blizzard might influence it, and what people are saying about it so far.
Sounds like a plan. Before we jump in, though, maybe a quick reminder.
Oh, right. Before we begin, please like, share, and subscribe. It really helps us out. Okay, so Bonfire Studios, founded back in 2016.
Yep, by Rob Pardo, who was the chief creative officer at Blizzard. And he brought other key people with him, like the old Diablo 3 game director.
And guys involved in StarCraft, Hearthstone. I mean, Pardo's fingerprints are all over Blizzard's biggest hits. That's some serious weight behind a new studio.
It really is. But what's also interesting is why they started Bonfire. Pardo talked about wanting a place that didn't make developers choose.
Choose between what?
Between like the small personal impact you get at an indie studio and the massive resources you need for a blockbuster game.
Ah, okay. So, the best of both worlds, kind of. Small enough to be agile, but big enough to actually compete.
Exactly. And you can see that in the long development time. Since 2018, they clearly weren't rushing this thing out. They wanted to innovate.
Makes sense. Taking their time, refining something that looks a bit like their old dark fantasy stuff, visually.
But plays totally differently. Which brings us to the gameplay.
Yeah, this is where it gets really interesting. You called it a genre Frankenstein. I like that.
Hey, well, it fits. You've got that isometric viewpoint, top-down like Diablo.
Classic ARPG look.
But then it's mixed with team-based PvP, randomized loot drops like you'd see in PUBG.
Okay.
And this really tactical, ability-based combat that needs precision aiming. Think more like a MOBA or even Dark Souls in terms of skill shots, just from that isometric view.
Wow. Okay, let's unpack that combat piece. Isometric free aim combat, they call it.
Yep. And that's the key. It's not point and click like traditional ARPGs. You have to manually swing your camera view around and physically aim your abilities, your shots.
So more like aiming with thumbsticks on a controller, maybe? Even with mouse and keyboard?
Kind of, yeah. It makes it way more skill-based. Reflexes, spatial awareness. It's all critical. Less about just clicking on a target.
And they pulled the camera in quite close, right? What does that do?
That's deliberate. It limits your peripheral vision. Pardo actually said this puts melee characters and ranged characters on equal footing. Well, a ranged character can't just endlessly kite backwards while seeing the whole battlefield. They have to constantly manage that tight camera view, just like a melee fighter does. Makes ambushes much more viable.
Huh. That's actually pretty clever. A way to counter the usual range dominance in these types of games.
Exactly. And they mentioned it was designed with controllers in mind from the start.
Which suggests they're definitely thinking about consoles, aiming for that wider battle royale audience, not just PC RPG players.
Seems likely, yeah.
Okay, so if the combat's that different, what about progression? I read something like, items are the heroes.
That's the core idea. And coming from the team that basically invented Diablo's loot system, it's fascinating. There are no classes, no fixed heroes you pick at the start.
None. So how do you play?
You start as a blank slate, an echo they call it, in this weird dimension called the tower. And your abilities, your entire playstyle for that match, are defined by the relics you find.
Relics being weapons and armor.
Right. You have 4 slots,
Yeah.
2 weapons, a crown, and an amulet. Each item you equip gives you abilities.
Give me an example.
Okay, say you pick up a big hammer, the icebreaker mace, boom, 1 weapon slot filled, and maybe that gives you a ground slam ability that slows enemies.
Okay.
Then maybe you find an amulet of force, and that gives you a utility skill, like putting up an electric wall or something. Your build literally comes together piece by piece during the match.
So massive flexibility. You adapt based on what you find.
Totally. But then there's another layer, relic sets.
Ah, like set bonuses in Diablo.
Sort of, but with a twist. If you equip 2 or more items from the same set, you get a bonus. But crucially, these bonuses are never just flat damage increases.
Oh, what are they then?
Utility, survivability, cooldown reduction, things like that.
Yeah.
It's a deliberate choice to keep the focus on skill shots. You win by hitting your abilities, not just because you found a statistically better weapon.
That feels important for a competitive game. Keeps it from being pure RNG.
Exactly. Protects the skill aspect. But the real gamble comes with the eternal transformation.
Okay, what's that? Sounds epic.
It is. If you manage to find all 4 relics from a single matching set, like all 4 pieces of the Warlord set or whatever, you can choose to transform.
Into an Eternal. What does that mean?
You basically become this powerful archetype, regaining consciousness, they say, and you get a 5th super powerful, game-changing ultimate ability.
Whoa. Okay, why wouldn't you always do that? Seems like the obvious goal.
Because there's a huge catch. Once you transform into an Eternal, your build is locked for the rest of the match. All 4 items, all 5 abilities, locked.
So you lose all that flexibility you had before.
Precisely. If the situation changes, if you need a different kind of utility for the final fight, tough luck, you're stuck. Whereas if you keep a mixed or shattered build, you can keep swapping items out.
So it's a trade-off. Raw power versus adaptability, that's a really interesting tactical choice mid-match.
It is. Is it better to lock in that ultimate power early or stay flexible for the chaos of the late game? Playtests suggest it's very situational. Depends on your team, the floor layout, everything.
Okay, let's talk about the match itself. The Ascension Royale mode. It's 15 teams of 3, right? Roughly 30 minutes.
Yeah, that's the structure. Starts out with teams spreading out, looting gear from monsters, chests, maybe doing little quests for NPCs. Standard BR opening, kind of.
Getting those initial relics.
Right. But then things heat up when the beacons appear. These are the objectives.
And this is where the Royale part really kicks in.
Definitely. A beacon pops up, and all nearby teams have just 90 seconds to get to it and claim it.
90 seconds, that's not a lot of time.
It's super aggressive. And while you're trying to get there, the Abyss Storm, the shrinking kill zone, is closing in, forcing encounters.
So much for that tactical retreat idea they mentioned earlier. 90 seconds feels like it forces fights.
It absolutely does, especially around those beacons. But here's the reward. Only the one team that holds the beacon uncontested when the timer runs out gets to ascend to the next floor of the tower.
And ascending revives dead teammates.
Yep, brings everyone back. So even if your team is hurting, fighting for that beacon is almost always worth it because of the full team reset if you win.
Okay, so the player pool shrinks floor by floor, leading to a final 3v3 at the top. What about the environment itself? You mentioned the tower.
Yeah, the level design sounds pretty key. Lots of verticality, places to set up ambushes. It's not just flat arenas. Plus, there are environmental hazards.
Like what?
The sources mention things like giant, unkillable monsters roaming around. Like this Fury, a big bird statue thing that just appears and forces teams to scatter or change their plans instantly. Adds another layer of unpredictability.
Wow, so you're fighting other teams, the Storm and giant monsters.
Pretty much. And all this chaos means communication is vital. Playtesters consistently said you need heavy and constant communication. Like, voice chat is almost mandatory to coordinate.
Okay, so summing up the game itself. Isometric, skill shot combat, loot defines your build on the fly, set bonuses for utility, a big gamble on becoming an Eternal, and a fast-paced, multi-stage battle royale mode with environmental hazards.
That's a pretty good summary. Yeah, it's a lot.
It really is. Which brings us to the reception. High pedigree, unique concept. But it's launching into a brutal market, right? What are people saying?
Well, like you'd expect, it's really divided. A lot of traditional ARPG fans, the PvE folks, saw PvP only and Battle Royale and immediately tuned out.
Yeah, there's serious fatigue with new PvP live service games. So many fail to gain traction against the big ones like Fortnite or Apex.
That's the huge hurdle.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, you have the playtester feedback. And many of them actually praised the core combat. They called it fast-paced and mostly smooth.
So the moment-to-moment gameplay feels good. The aiming, the abilities.
Apparently so. Especially for people who like that high skill ceiling. The isometric free aim seems to work for those who click with it.
But what were the downsides? Where did it fall apart for testers?
2 main things came up repeatedly. One was too much downtime early on, running around, looting, not much action. Kind of the opposite problem of the late game.
And the late game.
That's where things got messy. Those final fights, especially with multiple teams converging on a beacon, testers described it as a cluster.
Hey, not exactly the strategic, skill-based combat they were probably aiming for.
Probably not. It sounds like the combination of the tight camera, all the abilities flying around from multiple teams, the storm, maybe environmental stuff. It just becomes overwhelming, demands almost perfect coordination, and if you don't have it, it descends into chaos.
So the individual pieces might be good, but putting them all together under pressure creates issues.
Seems that way. It suggests that maybe the skill ceiling is incredibly high, but the skill floor required just to function in those late-game scenarios might also be punishingly high, especially without a well-oiled team on comms.
It sounds like Arkheron is trying to hit this very specific target. Players who love the skill expression of MOBAs or shooters and the dark fantasy loot chase of ARPGs, but who are also willing to commit fully to a high-stakes, team-based PvP environment. That's not niche.
Very niche. So, yeah, to wrap it up, Arkheron is this high-concept blend from veteran developers. Isometric view, but skill shot focused. Builds made entirely from loot, found mid-match. Utility over raw power and atomization.
The success really hangs on whether that core loop, that Relicus hero system, is compelling enough and has enough depth to keep players engaged long-term.
And whether it can overcome that general market skepticism about another new battle royale,
Yeah.
Can the utility focus and skill combat create a stable, interesting competitive meta? That's the million-dollar question.
It really is. Which leaves us with a final thought for you, the listener. We've talked about this tension between the random luck of finding good relics and the deep skill needed for the combat. So, considering that blend, can a game like Arkheron truly create a competitive scene where player skill consistently, definitively, wins out over the randomness inherent in looting the very foundation of the battle royale genre it's stepping into? Something to think about.
Definitely food for thought.
Absolutely. Well, that's all the time we have for this deep dive. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Join us again for another great analysis. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.